On May 13, 1914, deep in the rural heart of Chambers County, Alabama, a baby boy named Joe Louis came into the world, tipping the scales at an impressive 11 pounds. Born in a weathered home on Bell Chapel Road, miles from the nearest town, he was the seventh of 8 children to Monroe and Lily Barrow. His parents, the children of freed slaves, scraped by as sharecroppers and tenant farmers. Life wasn't easy, but little Joe's story was destined to rise far above those humble beginnings. From a young age, Louis battled challenges, including a speech impediment that kept him quiet until he was 6. His father, Monroe, was committed to a mental institution when Joe was just 2, leaving the boy with little memory of him. By 1920, Lily remarried, believing Monroe had passed away, though he lived until 1938, never knowing the fame his son would achieve. The family's world shifted in 1926 when racial terror from the Ku Klux Klan pushed them to flee Alabama for Detroit, Michigan, joining the wave of black families seeking safety and opportunity during the Great Migration. Settling in the Black Bottom neighborhood, Joe's family found work and a fresh start, with Joe himself later taking up a job at Ford's River Rouge plant. Though he briefly attended Bronson Vocational School to learn cabinet making, life had much bigger plans for the quiet boy from Alabama. Joe Louis's personal life was as eventful as his career. He had 2 children, Jacqueline, 1943, and Joseph Louis Barrow Jr., 1947, with his first wife, Marva Trotter. The couple divorced in 1945, remarried a year later, but split again in 1949. Marva went on to a successful modeling and acting career. On Christmas Day in 1955, Joe married Rose Morgan, a businesswoman from Harlem, but their union ended in annulment by 1958. His final marriage was to Martha Jefferson, a Los Angeles lawyer, in 1959. They remained together until his death and had 4 children: Joseph Jr., John, Joyce, and Janet. Despite his marriages, Joe discreetly enjoyed the company of other women, including Lena Horne and Edna Mae Harris. Louis wasn't just a fighter in the ring. He also stood for political causes. In 1940, he and Marva supported Wendell Willkie, an anti-segregation Republican candidate, believing he could offer fair opportunities for African Americans. In later years, Louis faced struggles with drugs and health. A 1969 collapse in New York, initially thought to be physical exhaustion, was later linked to cocaine use. In 1970, he was hospitalized for paranoia, admitting later that he feared a conspiracy against him. As his health declined further, Louis battled strokes and heart issues, undergoing surgery in 1977 for an aortic aneurysm. Louis's passion for golf also broke barriers. In 1952, he became the first African-American celebrity to compete in a PGA Tour event, paving the way for future black golfers by challenging the PGA's exclusionary policies. He financially supported early black golfers like Bill Spiller and Charlie Sifford and helped establish the First Tee, a program introducing golf to underprivileged youth. His legacy in golf continues, with a public course in Riverdale, Illinois, named in his honor. Even posthumously, Louis's influence persisted. The PGA granted him honorary membership and recognized golfers like Ted Rhodes and Bill Spiller, whom Louis had supported during his lifetime. Beyond boxing, Joe Louis left a mark in sports, politics, and breaking racial barriers, solidifying his place in history. The Great Depression hit the Barrow family hard, but young Joe Louis found solace at a recreation center on Brewster Street in Detroit. His mother, hoping to steer him in a different direction, tried to spark his interest in playing the violin. Rumor has it Joe kept his boxing dreams under wraps by tucking his gloves inside a violin case. At just 17, Joe stepped into the ring for his amateur debut in 1932. It's said that when signing up, he wrote his first name so big there wasn't space for his last name, cementing the iconic Joe Louis forever. His first fight ended in a loss to future Olympian Johnny Myler, but it wasn't long before Joe racked up victory after victory, even snagging the championship at the Brewster Street Center. In 1933, he claimed the Detroit area Golden Gloves Novice Division title, and the following year, he won the Open Division Light Heavyweight title, including the prestigious Chicago Tournament of Champions, though a hand injury kept him from competing in the ultimate Golden Glove Showdown. He bounced back in 1934 to win the light heavyweight national AAU championship in St. Louis. By the end of his amateur career, Lewis had an impressive record of 50 wins and just 4 losses, with 43 knockouts. He soon transitioned to the professional ring, where his fierce punches and lightning speed earned him 69 fights, 66 wins, 52 knockouts, and the heavyweight championship title from 1937 to 1949, an unmatched reign. Lewis's rise to fame was guided by John Roxborough, a black bookmaker who convinced him to avoid white managers, arguing they often exploited black fighters. Roxborough, with the help of Chicago promoter Julian Black and trainer Jack Blackburn, set Joe on a path to greatness. Lewis made his pro debut on July 4, 1934, in Chicago, earning $59 for a first-round knockout, a modest payday then worth around $1,148 today. That year, Lewis went undefeated in 12 fights, 10 ending in knockouts. While training, Joe caught the eye of Marva Trotter, a young secretary at a black newspaper. After a victorious match against Lee Ramage, Joe invited Marva to his celebration party. The two tied the knot in 1935, marking the beginning of a whirlwind journey both in and out of the ring. Joe Louis wasn't just a boxer. He was a trailblazer, breaking barriers and fighting for fair treatment in and out of the sport. His team, his talent, and his drive made him an unstoppable force, both in the ring and in history. Joe Louis was riding high in 1935, sitting at the top of the heavyweight division and crowned the Associated Press Athlete of the Year. The buzz was building for his long-awaited shot at the title. But first, a warm-up fight was set for June 1936 against Max Schmeling. Schmeling, a former champ whose glory days seemed behind him, wasn't considered much of a threat. He had won his title on a technicality years earlier and was now seen as past his prime at age 30. Lewis, undefeated with a 27-0 record, seemed unstoppable. While Lewis's training camp in New Jersey introduced him to golf, a hobby he quickly fell in love with, Schmeling was laser-focused. Studying Lewis's every move, Schmeling noticed a key flaw: Joe's habit of dropping his left hand after a jab. On June 19, 1936, Schmeling shocked the world by exploiting that weakness, knocking Lewis out in the 12th round at Yankee Stadium. It was Lewis's first professional loss and set the stage for one of the most anticipated rematches in boxing history. After beating Lewis, Schmeling had his sights set on a title shot against James J. Braddock, who had upset Max Baer to claim the heavyweight crown. However, Braddock's team, led by his manager Joe Gould, had other plans. They wanted a Braddock-Lewis fight and weren't about to let Schmeling's win ruin their payday. Gould demanded a lucrative deal from Lewis's promoter, Mike Jacobs, ensuring a cut of profits from Lewis's future bouts. The fight was officially set for June 22, 1937, in Chicago, sidestepping New York authorities who leaned towards Schmeling. Lewis played his part by dominating former champ Jack Sharkey in a knockout victory to stay in contention. Meanwhile, Braddock's camp fueled anti-Nazi sentiment against Schmeling, strengthening public support for Lewis. Legal battles were fought, but the fight was green-lit, and the boxing world held its breath. On fight night, Braddock managed to knock Lewis down in the first round, but that was his only shining moment. Lewis wore him down, round after round, until the 8th, when a brutal right hand knocked Braddock out cold. The punch shattered his teeth, sent him crashing to the canvas, and sealed Lewis's place in history as heavyweight champion. Across the nation, black communities erupted in celebration, with thousands pouring into the streets to cheer their new hero. Though Lewis now held the belt, the shadow of his loss to Schmeling loomed large. Determined to settle the score, Lewis declared he wouldn't feel like a true champ until he beat Schmeling. Attempts to arrange a rematch in 1937 fell apart when Schmeling demanded a hefty share of the profits. Instead, Lewis faced Britain's Tommy Farr, who accepted the fight for a record payday. In August 1937, Lewis and Farr clashed at Yankee Stadium in a grueling 15-round battle. Farr proved tougher than anyone expected, standing tall despite Lewis's power. When the decision was announced, Lewis emerged victorious, though boos erupted from fans who believed Farr had done enough to win. Even the referee admitted a moment of confusion may have misled Farr into thinking he had won. As the dust settled, Lewis's focus shifted back to Schmeling. The rematch would be inevitable, and Lewis stayed sharp, taking on other contenders in preparation. The world was eager to see if the Brown Bomber could rewrite history. The rematch between Joe Louis and Max Schmeling was a showdown that the world would never forget. Their clash became one of the biggest events in sports history, defining an era. After Schmeling beat Louis in 1936, he was hailed as a hero in Nazi Germany. His victory was even twisted into propaganda, claiming it proved Aryan supremacy. So, when the rematch was set for June 22, 1938, the stakes couldn't have been higher. Louis, fueled by the weight of personal pride and a nation counting on him, trained like never before. Even President Franklin D. Roosevelt told him, "Joe, we need your muscles to beat Germany." Meanwhile, Schmeling arrived in New York with a Nazi publicist boasting that Louis stood no chance and that the prize money would fund German tanks. Anti-Nazi protesters swarmed Schmeling's hotel, setting the stage for a fight that was about much more than boxing. Under the bright lights of Yankee Stadium, with over 70,000 fans and millions listening worldwide, Louis unleashed fury. It took just 2 minutes and 4 seconds for him to demolish Schmeling. 3 knockdowns, a vicious assault, and it was over. Schmeling's corner threw in the towel, and Louis became a hero, not just for Black America, but for the entire country. Lewis's career soared after that. He defended his heavyweight title 13 times in just 29 months, earning him the nickname the Brown Bomber and his challengers the less flattering Bum of the Month Club. But these weren't just pushovers. Some were top-ranked fighters. His most iconic bouts included a nail-biter against light heavyweight champion Billy Conn in 1941. Conn's quickness almost won the day, but Louis knocked him out in the 13th round, famously saying afterward, "He can run, but he can't hide." When World War II broke out, Louis didn't just fight in the ring, he joined the army. Touring to boost morale, he became a symbol of unity, saying, "We'll win because we're on God's side." He even helped break racial barriers in the military, supporting future trailblazers like Jackie Robinson. After the war, financial woes forced Louis back into the ring. He fought younger, tougher opponents like Rocky Marciano, who knocked him out in 1951. Despite the loss, Louis remained a beloved figure, his legacy intact. Later in life, Louis faced challenges but also found support from unlikely friends, including his former rival Max Schmeling, who helped him financially. Louis's story is one of resilience, redemption, and triumph, a legacy that continues to inspire. Joe Louis didn't just shine in the boxing ring. He ventured into pro wrestling and golf, leaving his mark in surprising ways. In 1954, to boost his finances, he stepped into wrestling, winning his debut match on August 6th against Bobby Nelson. By 1956, he was touring under promoter Ray Fabiani, but a rib injury during a bout with Cowboy Rocky Lee ended his run. Louis made brief comebacks in 1959 and the late 60s, even wrestling into the early 70s before transitioning to a referee role. Outside the ring, Louis was a trailblazer in golf. His passion for the game began in 1936, and in 1952, he made history as the first African-American to compete in the San Diego Open on a sponsor's exemption. Despite resistance from the PGA, which restricted membership to white players, Louis's star power helped challenge these barriers. The Caucasian-only rule was officially removed in 1961, paving the way for legends like Calvin Peete. Louis didn't just play golf, he championed it. He financially supported early Black professional golfers, including Bill Spiller, Ted Rhodes, and Charlie Sifford. He also co-founded the First Tee, a program introducing underprivileged kids to golf, with his son Joe Louis Barrow Jr. later leading the organization. The PGA eventually honored Louis and others who broke down barriers, granting them posthumous memberships. Today, his legacy lives on at the Joe Louis Golf Course in Riverdale, Illinois, a testament to his impact on and off the greens. Joe Louis lived a life that was large, both in and out of the boxing ring. On April 12, 1981, just hours after attending the Larry Holmes Trevor Berbick heavyweight title fight. Lewis passed away from cardiac arrest in Desert Springs Hospital near Las Vegas. His burial was a moment of honor, with President Ronald Reagan waiving the rules so Lewis could rest at Arlington National Cemetery with full military honors. His old rival and friend, Max Schmeling, helped pay for the funeral and even served as a pallbearer, a testament to their enduring bond. Lewis wasn't just a boxer, he was a movie star too. He played himself in several films, starting with the 1938 race film Spirit of Youth, and later appearing in movies like This Is the Army, 1943, Joe Palooka, Champ, 1946, and The Square Jungle, 1955. His final role came in the quirky 1970 comedy, The PHYNX. Lewis even popped up on TV shows like You Bet Your Life and Quincy M.E. He was also the subject of a 1953 biopic, The Joe Louis Story, though the low-budget production didn't do justice to his incredible life. In the ring, Lewis was nothing short of legendary. Reigning as heavyweight champion from 1937 to 1949, he defended his title a staggering 25 times and set records that still stand today. With 26 title fight victories, Lewis remains unmatched in the heavyweight division. His sharp wit also gave us iconic lines like, "He can run, but he can't hide, and everyone has a plan until they've been hit." Lewis's legacy stretched far beyond sports. He inspired millions, breaking racial barriers and lifting the spirits of Americans during tough times. His influence led to honors like a Congressional Gold Medal, a memorial statue in Detroit, and the naming of Joe Louis Arena, home to the Detroit Red Wings for decades. His Alabama hometown unveiled an 8-foot bronze statue in 2010 to celebrate their native son. Even Muhammad Ali, known for his bravado, called Lewis the greatest. "Whatever I said before, I don't mean it," Ali confessed after Lewis's passing. Joe Louis was the greatest. Lewis's kindness and universal appeal left an impact that crossed generations, races, and borders. From boxing to Hollywood, from breaking racial barriers to being immortalized on a postage stamp, Joe Louis remains a symbol of strength, humility, and greatness. He wasn't just a champion. He was a giant whose legacy will never fade.